let's talk to Tim Focas, Director of Financial Services at Parliament Street. And they are a company that are pro-Brexit, I believe. Is that right?
That is the case, yes.
Yeah. Well, Tim, perhaps you can, because I have never, and I'm sure you're one of the few that are not homophobic as well.
That is the case, yeah.
Yes, good, fine. Explain if you can, because I ask this every time. What benefits do you see for this country, nay, the world, in Britain leaving the European Union?
Well, I mean, first of all, a vote to leave the European Union doesn't necessarily mean a complete end to migration. There is clearly a feasible opportunity to allow people to come to this country post the vote. There's no need to reinvent the wheel necessarily, and a large number of entry routes have been developed in the past by previous governments for non-EU workers to enter the UK. This was actually simplified under Labour's Managed Migration Programme. It's had 5 different tiers. This included high-end investors to entrepreneurs to highly skilled workers within the Tier 2 category. So there's no reason why a managed migration program can't continue.
No,
the exit from.
I absolutely agree with you. I'm absolutely sure you're right, but that had nothing to do with the question I asked you. And the question is, just give me one, if you can, reason why we'll all be better off leaving Europe.
Well, clearly, there's a number of reasons why we're better off leaving.
One will do. Just one will do. One will do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, first of all, you have the ability to control your own borders, and that's one of the key principles.
That is the most ridiculously stupid thing, Tim, I've heard. I presume as a director of financial services, you are supposedly a fairly sensible and sane person. That is one of the most ridiculously stupid things I have ever heard anybody say. How are we going to be able to control our borders now better than better than we can now? How do we do that, Tim?
Well,
no, there is no way, is there, really? It's just one of these glib things you lot always come up with.
If you let me finish.
I don't know whether I want to let you finish, to be honest, because you're making me very angry. And at the beginning of the show, making me angry, well, that doesn't bode well for the next couple of hours, does it?
Well, I don't want to make you angry, but if I can go back to the original points I was going to make about the benefits of leaving the European Union. If you take, for example, the customs union, and the single market. The single market has been renowned to be European economic protectionism on a European scale. Outside of the customs union, we have the ability to make our trade deals with other countries quicker and more efficiently than has been done so far. And that is just one of the central benefits that people voted for last year.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. They didn't. The majority of people, I can assure you, because I've been talking about it for years, the majority of people voted last year because they want foreigners to stop coming to this country en masse. That's what most people voted for. They are under the misapprehension that this country is clogged up with foreign people, and as soon as we leave the European Union, everybody will be fine. What they forget and what they fail to understand is we won't be fine. The health service will become even worse than it is now. Lots of jobs that British people are too damned lazy to do, I hope they'll be forced to do. I hope a lot of these people who moan, I hope they're going to be told, well, there's no benefits for you because there are loads of jobs. You're going to have to do a job instead.
Well, I'll go back to my original point that I made at the top. Managed migration programs can be carried out very successfully.
Oh, so we leave the lazy layabouts on the social security. We leave them and bring more foreign people in to do the jobs they're too proud to do. Well, is that what we do?
I'm sorry, but I just don't think that's a fair representation of the people who voted for Brexit. And I don't actually think that's one of the key reasons why they voted to leave. I think there are a number of reasons outside of that why people decided.
You have no idea, the same way as me, really. None of us have any idea why other people voted, but the majority of people I've spoken to, ordinary people who voted to leave, is because they think there are too many people from other countries here because it's clogging up the housing, it's ruining the health service, and it's taking away jobs. And that's why people say, we'll get control of our borders. Like you said, Tim, we'll get control of our borders and we can keep Johnny Foreigner away from our shores. It will be great.
And that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what Brexit's about. You can have managed migration programs.
That's exactly what you said a few moments ago. You said so we can get back control of our borders. I'll play it back to you if you want.
And that is a point that obviously some people feel very passionately about, clearly. But that is not the sole reason and is not, the overall benefits from being able to remove ourselves from the European Union.
There are no overall benefits.
I gave the point about the economic protectionism of the single market, and everyone knows that that's been the case for many, many years now. I gave the point about the customs union and now our ability to make our own trade deals with the rest of the world.
Yeah, but that's
more efficiently.
fatuous. I'm sorry, that's what you just spout out, because that's what, we could do great trade deals now. We could do all sorts of things. We're not going to do brilliant trade deals with America. America's not interested in anybody else unless we buy their chlorinated chicken, and we're not going to have that. We are doing quite well. We were doing remarkably well compared with how we'll be doing in a couple of years' time, yet we had to go and mess it up.
The European Customs Union, for example, puts tariffs on any countries that are looking to sell their products from outside of the European Union. That is European economic protectionism, as I say, on a European scale. There's no doubt that there are clear benefits from being outside of that bloc. And we'll see over the next couple of years. We're already hearing ministers.
Give me one. Give me one. When we do most of our trade, with our other European friends. Who do we want to trade with? I suppose Australia and New Zealand. We want to trade with them, and we'll have better deals we can do with them. Are you sure? Is that the sort of thing that's going to make us better? Or is it India we're looking to? Or China? Well, mind you, we seem to get enough stuff in from China anyway. So what is it exactly? Where are these magnificent trade deals we're going to be doing?
Well, the point is we have the flexibility to make them.
You've got no idea, have you? The point is we've got the flexibility to do that. What does that mean?
It means that being part of the European Union...
Gosh, you and flipping Julia Hartley-Brewer, I mean, just ridiculous. Look, you're ruining this country. Why don't you just apologise to people and go?
I'm not going to apologise for a democratic decision that was made last year.
It wasn't democratic at all. It was hardly 50-50. And I bet if you actually took it again now, I think if you had the vote again now, you'd probably find it would go the other way.
Well, I don't agree with that. The people that I speak to, and in fact the people that we've surveyed across the think tank over the last year or so, have...
you see, when I come to power, you lot will be gone. The bonfire of the think tank will actually become a reality. What use are you, anyway? You have a think tank, you think about stuff, you come out with this rubbish, influence people in a way that they're not really sure what they're talking about. Who finances you?
Well, I don't wish to go into the finances of our think tank with you on the phone call now.
Why not? Why? What are you scared of? What are you frightened of?
I thought this was a conversation about, the announcement that's being made today, and clearly,
this is a conversation. This is a conversation about how rubbish we're going to end up if we carry on with this ridiculous idea of leaving Europe and closing the borders and stopping people coming in unless we've got something we want them to do. It's like asking people to come in and be our skivvies. It's embarrassing.
And as I've already highlighted, the benefits are wide-ranging outside of the single market and outside of the customs union. There is that flexibility now. I know you don't like the word, but it's true, for us to make speedier trade deals with the rest of the world. And that, you only have to look at how long it's taken. We've never done speedy
trade deals with the rest of the world, even
before
we were in the European Union, and I'm old enough to remember when we were.
Power in the bloc, haven't we?
But we are in a very different world now, aren't we? We are in a globalised economy. It's a fast-moving economy as well, and it's important, I think, that we have that flexibility to make our own decisions. That's what a lot of people voted for last year, whether you like it or not.
I don't like it, and I'm sorry. You're pulling ideas out of. You live in a little bubble, don't you? You people in think tanks. Who pays for? I'm fascinated. Why are you worried to tell me who actually finances your think tank?
Well, I'm not worried at all. I just don't feel the need to go into.
Why are you embarrassed?
At all? No, I'm not embarrassed by it at all. I just don't think it's a.
Is it the topic of conversation surely is anything I want to talk about. It's my radio show, and if I want to talk about something, presumably that's okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't have to answer it. Obviously, you don't have to answer it.
Well, I don't wish to go into that now, no.
But then I don't know, and I'm at a disadvantage not knowing, really, who's financing you. Because if I knew who was financing you, I might know a little better where you're coming from in this discussion.
Well, we have various investors that support us, but I don't really want to go into any more detail than that, if that's okay.
How concerned are you about the fact that a lot of financial organisations are going to leave Britain and move back into the European Union proper?
Well, in terms of the financial services sector, what we've seen are various banks announcing that they're going to have certain trading operations moving to the European Union, and they're building in contingency plans for that. And I think it depends on the type of the part of the financial services sector that you're referring to. I think, yeah, well, I mean, the city's a very big place. There's a number of different operations. Banks operate across a number of different business lines. And, clearly there was always going to be a case where, they were going to build contingency plans into their operations.
So why are lots of the city financial people very upset about this and very concerned about it? Obviously, you're apparently a financial director of this think tank called Parliament Street. Why aren't you worried when lots of the big financial organisations are very concerned?
Well, the city doesn't just represent the big financial corporations that you're referring to. The city represents small cap brokers, smaller cap asset management groups, and those sorts of firms actually will probably see long-term benefits.
Well, we can only big boys. We're talking about the big boys. Are they going to leave?
Well, they'll move certain operations, and I've already explained that, clearly we've seen a number of those big investment banks announce that certain operations are going to be moving to EU jurisdictions, and that's fine.
Why is that fine when people are going to lose their jobs or have to move to another country?
Bad for the economy, isn't it?
Very bad for the economy.
Well, actually, financial services has always been very mobile. And in fact, if you look at particularly something like the brokerage space, for example, it's always had a large proportion of people operating across the whole of the European Union and indeed the UK.
The problem, Tim, Focas, Tim, the problem is with you and people like you, you do think you can manipulate people that you consider to be a little less worthy than yourselves. And you have manipulated a lot of people to vote to leave Europe, and I'm sure that you think this is going to be a brilliant thing to do. It is going to come back and bite you on your bum, I can guarantee. And if, as I expect, the problems with Ireland and Northern Ireland get worse, you'll be able to sit there in your ivory tower in Parliament Street, won't you? And you'll say, well, it wasn't my fault. I didn't mean all this to happen. A couple of years from now, Tim, you will probably be feeling very bad.
Well, look, there is no ivory tower. There's just been purely a democratic decision to leave the European Union. That is what the government's following through with.
You gave people who talked the government into it. Nigel Farage, much as I love Nigel, is a neighbour of mine. I think he was more surprised than anyone else. You gave people no information about this. People were encouraged to vote along these lines of thinking we're going to get foreigners out of our country. We saw an enormous amount of hate crime as a result of the vote to leave the European Union by very thick and very stupid people who went up to people who didn't come from Europe, often came from Asia and Africa, because they're so thick and so stupid. They thought that voting to leave Europe meant that all foreigners would leave. And you, Tim, and people like you, sadly, are responsible for this.
Well, I don't agree with that. And also, like I said at the top of the call, there's a large number of entry routes that have been developed over time by consecutive governments for non-EU workers, and it can be EU workers as well, and students to enter the UK. These can be simplified again into a managed migration programme, and we can see a tiered system. These are things that the government can do and will enact on post-Brexit.
Well, we will have this debate, I'm sure, continually, because eventually those people who voted to leave the European Union will have to admit that they made a real cock-up. The government's obviously running scared, Tim, or they would have done, if they were really that concerned, they would have set something like this in motion a year ago. We've got a year and a couple of weeks left before we're out. This isn't going to be ready to tell people the best way to handle immigration until a few months before we actually are supposed to leave. This is a complete and utter mess. The politicians don't know what they're doing, do they?
Well, let's see how the talks progress. I mean, we're in the very early stages still.
Let's see how they progress. Let's see how they progress. And maybe we won't all go to hell in a handcart. Tim Focas, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Talk Radio. I'm James Whale.
Talk Radio. Digital debate for the UK.
Pick up your phone and Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.